So GoHighLevel just released this new AI agents tab, and while this is not a new set of features, sometimes when they look new, people think that they are new. And so I want to share with you guys an overview of what's included in these AI agent features and how you can use them either to grow your own business or to offer to other businesses. Now, I personally do both. I have been using GoHighLevel for about 6 years now, and I'm also a top affiliate of the software. And so I want to share with you guys how you can use these two awesome new features. We use both of these with our clients that we help, and these really can make a difference. So I'm going to walk you through each one and basically show you how you can use these for your business, and you can also sell these to other businesses if that's your plan as well. So you should now see inside of your what's called a sub account this feature here that's called AI agents. Now, previously this was basically over here, and they kind of moved it over to the front, most likely because one, AI is the trend right now, and also these features add a lot of value. So they probably didn't want, this main core feature to be, in the back of the system. So it should now be right here for you. And when you click on it, you can see here we have the getting started and we have the voice AI. And so what voice AI can do at this point in time is it can answer phone calls 24/7, 365. So if somebody calls, let's use the example of your business. If somebody calls your business and you're not available to answer, traditionally with GoHighLevel, they had a feature, and they still offer this, but it's called missed call text back. And so essentially what this would do is if somebody called your business and you did not answer, then the system would automatically text them. And so this is kind of the new and improved version of that, because there are essentially now no missed calls if you turn on the voice AI features. Now you could still enable that other feature, and there's a few different ways you can use the voice AI, which I'll tell you how to do that. But basically, if you call the number associated with this particular account and you have this turned on and set up successfully, then an AI agent will answer that phone call and take the lead through qualifying questions or whatever it is that you prompt the AI agent to do, which I'll cover. And so that's what this feature will do. It prevents basically the business from missing any sort of call, and creates a lot of predictability at the front end of the actual business. So there's voice AI. And so to set this feature up, you click on create your first voice AI agent. And this will now kind of take you over here to the back end. All right. And then they've made it pretty easy. And I think that's the direction that they are going with the majority of their features, is they want to simplify the process for setting these features up. And so I'm just going to walk you through, what you would do here and give you, some ideas that you can use, and also share with you some other things that maybe are potentially on the way, and how you could, use those as well. So the first thing that you'll do here is you name the AI agent. So I name all my AIs Jackie, so I would just put Jackie there. And then here we have the name of the business. So if this is for your business, then you would put your business name there. They also now offer a few different other languages. So they obviously have English and then all these other languages here. I personally have not tested these out, but you can obviously see quite a bit of use cases here. If you have leads that you generate for your business, and sometimes they prefer, speaking Spanish, for example, there are automations you can create inside of GoHighLevel where if a lead is communicating via text or WhatsApp or Messenger, and they say that they prefer Spanish, we can actually, redirect them over to this AI agent and get them, communicating in Spanish if they do call. So there's a lot of cool things you can do when you really know how to use the system. So we've got languages there. Then we have different voices here, so you can just scroll through some of these and play those and basically see which voice sounds the best. We also have the time zone here. So what time zone is the AI agent on? So if you're generating leads and you're referring to the time, if you can't quite book an appointment directly through a calendar yet, I can explain how to do that, but this would just be relevant for any sort of like what I would call kind of like a soft appointment if you do it just through the system, where somebody calls the number and basically says, hey, can you guys call me tomorrow or something, then the AI agent may say, do you prefer the morning or afternoon, right? And so it's going to refer to whatever that time is based on this time zone there. Then we have the direction of the call. So currently, this AI agent will pick up all the incoming calls, and you can obviously see here that we have the outbound call, which is coming soon, which I don't have a time frame on quite yet. But the use case for inbound call would obviously be if anyone calls the business, either after receiving a text or even getting a call from the user of the business, and maybe the lead missed the call and they call back. So all that would qualify under inbound call. The use case for outbound call in a way that I think is sustainable, right? Because I'm sure people are going to want to have 1,000 leads and just have this AI calling them outbound every single day. But the sustainable use case for this is a lead fills out a form, with a Facebook ad or something similar, and basically, this AI agent would call that lead, confirm their submission, make sure that if they're ready to go to the next stage for that business, maybe it's booking an appointment, that the lead is qualified and stuff like that. So the outbound call, not available yet, but the use case is obviously pretty large for that. We currently generate probably close to 1,000 leads per month for our clients with inbound ads. And so the idea with both of these being available would be, you would generate the lead and this AI agent would call that lead immediately. And if that lead answers, then we would just transfer that over to the actual client. And so that would just essentially save a lot of time, right? If the business owner that we would work with is making those calls, it would save money if they have people that they're paying to make those calls. And ultimately, it would just be fully automated, right? Where you would never have to think about when someone fills out a form that they are getting contacted, right? GoHighLevel already solves the problem for, texting that lead, emailing that lead, using Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, whatever, if a lead is inquiring. But this now opens up another channel, which is voice, right? So inbound and outbound, the only setting we can really change here right now is inbound. And so that's what I'm going to leave this at. And then the agent's initial message. So this is essentially what you first hear when the voice AI picks up the phone. So as soon as you call that number, this will be the first message that you hear from your AI agent, right? So what you would want to put here is kind of the first, depending on your use case, right? But for us, we help investors find off-market deals. And so the initial message that we have here is something along the lines of like, hey, you have reached ABC Cash Offers. Are you interested in getting a cash offer today for your property, right? And then when they say yes, then it goes and takes them through the rest of the prompt, right? So you would put whatever is relevant to your business here, and basically, that would be the first thing you hear as soon as the AI agent answers the phone, all right? And then let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. So this is the call time limit. So I found in testing this, there really isn't a need for calls that are even more than like maybe 3 minutes. But to keep it, is extremely predictable, I'd probably just max this out. Since you can either do pay per minute or you could do unlimited. And so you can put that at 15 minutes. The likelihood, the goal of this system, right, is to not replace the owner or whoever's taking the call that is actually going to give the customer a quote or whatever it is that they that the business does. So we don't want to have the AI agent doing I have both perspectives, because you'd be really surprised what this thing can do. I actually built one of these to take orders for like a pizza shop, and I just came up with menu items and I was doing a test, and it calculated my order instantaneously. So I ordered pizza and soda, stuff that I don't even eat. But, I put all this stuff, in there, and it just instantly told me the price. It told me when I should expect to pick up my order, all that stuff I was able to program. So while you don't necessarily right now maybe want it to do everything for the customer and try to give them quotes and stuff if you need to cease a product or whatever it is you're doing, but I would say that don't be surprised if in the future these things are taking a majority of the calls. And so it's gonna be very interesting to see what happens. I don't think anyone truly knows. So This is call time limit, so you can put the amount of time here, right? And then response speed, I've always left at normal. Brisk is basically just a little bit faster, and then fast is like the fastest. I believe brisk is, a little bit faster than normal. I haven't, I just tested normal and fast. So normal was fast enough for me, so I just left that. So that's the advanced settings, right? So if you want to do that, just make sure you save that, and then we just move over here to next, all right? So now there's kind of two ways to set this up. I've always set this up with the advanced mode, which is because the leads that we get for our clients are all inbound leads. So, we're not missing these pieces of information since we collect them on our survey. So we run ads, AI ads actually now. We found how to create these AI human looking ads, and they're insanely good and they actually work. I'm not one to just say, something for the sake of saying it. So these actually work, and they get leads, and they've already gotten a contract with an AI avatar. So long story short, we run ads, we take those leads to a survey, and so we collect this information, right, for our niche. And so because of that, there's not really a need to set this up this way. I set it up with the advanced mode. So an example, though, of a way that you would collect this is, let's say that there's multiple ways you can do this, don't get me wrong, but just as an example, let's just say that you are a real estate agent, or you are setting this up for real estate agents. Now, the last video I did shows how you can set this up for real estate agents for their open houses or for their listings and stuff like that. So let's say, these real estate agents are putting out signs, and they put the phone number here associated with the AI agent. And when somebody calls, right, that number, all the system has is the phone number, right? And so what you may want, right, if you wanted to turn it into a lead generation system, is we would want to collect the name of that person, right, their email. If the address is relevant in that case, you can put that as well. But in the example of a real estate agent doing an open house and somebody calling that number, then you may just want the name and their email, and then because you already have their phone number because they're calling, you would have a name, email, and phone number now for that lead, right? And so we don't do that because, like I said, when people are filling out the survey, we're getting name, email, phone, property address, why they sell, all these different pieces of information for these seller leads, right? People that need to sell their home. So that's how you can use this. Now, the other thing you can do, which essentially is its own other training, if I go in deep into some of these features, but just to give you an idea. So let's just say that we stick with that same use case of a real estate agent who does open houses. And so somebody sees the sign and they call, we collect their name, their email, we have the phone because they called, and then we have whatever kind of questions additionally in the prompt, which I can show you, that basically collect an idea of, like, are they looking to buy a home or whatever, right? So let's just say after that phone call is completed, we turn this feature on, trigger workflow when call is completed. So what this will do, if you're not new to GoHighLevel, then workflows is kind of the heart of the system. So that's where you have, if somebody fills out a form, you program that you would send them a text. If somebody fills out a if somebody fills out a form, maybe you move them in a pipeline stage, right? Which is just kind of like a visual Kanban table is what it's called. And so what you would do here is, if you turn this on, we can now trigger any one of the workflows that we have built. So if I build a workflow where I call it open house follow-up automation, where when somebody calls this number, the bot or the AI agent collects their information, and we trigger that specific workflow. Maybe a day later, we text that lead and say, hey, thanks for inquiring about this open house. Do you need help on your home buying journey? Whatever it is, right? And that whole workflow can have a sequence of different automations, different actions, and all the things that you can do in GoHighLevel. And just so you guys can, kind of see what I'm referring to, if you're like totally new, you basically have these workflows here that we start from scratch. I'm not going to, go and do one here, but just so you can see, the call ends. Imagine that the call is completed. We have that action turned on. So maybe I want to add a tag, right, that they called from that particular open house, right? Maybe I want to sign it to a certain member of my team, right? Maybe I want to add a task, manual task to follow up or send them something, right? All these things that you can do here in high level. I mean, it would take a long time to show you all of these things, but those are kind of the main ones, right? Adding them as an opportunity, which, like I said, is that visual view of your sales pipeline, right? All these other things that you can do here, okay? You can even, do something like the booking bot. So they end the call. This system, now that we have their phone number, will send them a text. And because we trigger this workflow when the call ends, we can now set up the booking bot, which is either used for text message. This would be the only way we could do it since we're collecting their phone number. But we would text them and we could put in a prompt there. And what this bot will do is attempt to get them to book an appointment. So we can turn calls that would potentially be missed into leads, and then into conversations, and then into appointments, right? So that's the power of what high level can do. And I can see all these things with my eyes closed. So I don't, I've been doing this for so long where I just know where everything is and know how it all works. But I want to show you guys just so, you have an idea of what I'm referring to. So now going back to where we were right here, right? So that's the power of that. So just one button kind of has all these different things that can be done inside of it, right? So that's an example there. And then we also have receive email notification post call completion. So when the call ends, maybe I want to, send an email to all the users of my account, or a specific person that's already assigned to the call, or a specific, just one specific person, or a custom email, right? And so that could be you as the agency owner, if you're an agency owner, as an example, where if you set this up for a business, you want to get an email with a, transcription kind of summary that call was completed with somebody, right, using your system. So that's that set of features. Now, what I do here, and I'm not going to do an entire video on prompting. I have videos and templates where I show you kind of what you can put here. The simplest way to explain what the prompt is just how the bot behaves, or the AI agent behaves. So if we tell the AI agent to ask, by the way, this is all just text, right? So when I say prompt, it's not like you're coding or anything. I mean, it's literally like deleting it. And now I can say, ask this question. This is not how you prompt. I just want to show you, how to do this. So I could say, ask this question, and just say, do you want to buy a home, right? And so just by changing the text, literally saving it, if I call that number now, I've given the AI agent a completely different way of behaving now, just by doing this, right, from what it was before. So what you want here, right, is essentially, if you were to train, a person to do this, this would be kind of considered like the script, right? So if you're doing, like if this AI agent had the use case of like attempting to book appointments, you would have maybe like, the introduction, and then the qualifying questions, like, do you want to buy a home, or all the things that are relevant to your business. And then just kind of the like, moving into the appointment booking, like what days or times are you available, and then kind of the completion, right? So that's all what's being done here. It's very simple to do. And like I said, I have other videos that, basically show you these templates. And the last video I did shows you how to just put all the information from a real estate listing into this, prompt. So if you made a bot for a real estate agent with specific listing information, somebody could call that number and get all that information, and even, book an appointment. Additionally, outside of once you have your prompt, you can do some really cool things, which is you can use data from the contact. So an example, let's say you collect all this information like we do from these leads via ads. And so they give us their address, they give us why they're selling, they give us their time frame, they tell us their asking price, they give us all that information. So we can actually incorporate that into the question. So you do have to be careful, because the AI will not read everything perfectly. So if you don't have the field mapped, if you don't have the field formatted a certain way, sometimes it can, read it in a weird way. So an example would be like if you type, I don't know if this is specifically how it would happen, but this is an example of like if the property that they are attempting to sell is they put 315, right? Like as their asking price, but we as humans know it's 315,000. Or we would kind of assume that if we look at the property. Then the AI agent, if that data is mapped in here, may say, do you want 315 for your house or 315 or something? And so that's not the worst case scenario, but depending on certain data and how it's typed, it may read it weird. So you do want to be mindful of that. Now, an example of that would be like if for us, we qualify motivated sellers. So we can say, this would be, with once the prompt is already designed, we would have a question like, do you own the property at, and I would pull the contact full address, right? And so I would put that right there. And so if they own 123 ABC Street in Los Angeles, California, now we've taken this question from, do you own the property, right? If this wasn't there, it would just, we couldn't communicate specifically, right? To now, are you the owner of 123 ABC Street, or confirming that you own this property, or are responsible or in charge to, make a decision to sell it, right? Whatever it is. So that's just one example, and you can do that with any piece of data that you use. You can use the other feature, which I'll be covering shortly, which is the texting bot, and you can collect information from leads there and save those to fields, right? And then those fields can be used in here. So a lot of cool stuff you can do with the system. And so that's an example of that. So there's the prompt. And then the last kind of pieces we have are, now keep in mind, if you switch to advanced mode, which I did, since, I'd recommend learning how to use it. If you want to really use the capabilities of it, then you are in advanced mode, and the settings you had from basic mode are not translated. So if we wanted to collect the name and the email, we would need to prompt that, all right? Because that's not going to translate over here. And so once you have your prompt designed, we have our different actions. So call transfer. So let's say that what you can do here, it's pretty cool. So when you design the prompt with the end goal in mind, you can really maximize these actions. So an example of this would be, like, let's say for us, a very motivated seller says that their time frame for selling, right? Like, when do they need to sell their home, is as soon as possible, right? So we could prompt time frame for selling, and then the AI agent will say, when it comes to selling your property, what time frame are you looking at, right? Or something like that. And then we can have the AI agent suggest these answers to make it easier on the user. So we would say, like, as soon as possible, 30 days, or 30 days to 60 days, 60 days to 90 days, or 90 days or more, right? And then the user will probably just pick one of those things, because that's what people do. And so in an example like this, let's just say that we want to now call our the person who handles the leads to get this person on the phone immediately, right? As an example. So that would be the call transfer. So we would say seller needs to sell immediately, and we would put the number that of the person that we want this to transfer to, which would be like the lead manager or the owner, whoever's working the leads. And then when should the call transfer take place? So then we would say if the user's timeline for selling their property is ASAP, or 30 to 60 days, let's just say, as an example, right? And then we would tell the AI agent what to say before transferring the call, and we can say, something like, we will connect you with a live representative, or, due to the nature of your time frame, we'd like to connect you with somebody right now, something like that, right? Something simple. Don't overthink these, because, people just kind of roll with it. They don't even know we're over here building an AI system, transferring it. They just kind of like, they're on the phone and they're just going with whatever the system's saying. So you can kind of just say what you want here. So you would save that, and if your prompt is done correctly, then what will happen there is now we have this AI agent that's collecting all the information you've prompted, and then on a specific action like the time frame, the call will be transferred to whomever you'd like it to be transferred to, right? And then that's this action, right? The call transfer. You can do multiple. Once you change this, I believe it would probably be 3. And these would just be based on different, actions essentially. So you could do one for the time frame. You could do one for if somebody says, I want to talk to a live person. You could do it for if they, the property is extremely damaged in this example. So any kind of, I would only probably have one main condition you would transfer it on, but you can do, I believe it would be 3, since that's the limit on some of these other ones. So that's the call transfer action. The next one is triggering the workflow. So this is the same thing that I showed you before, but it can now take place based on a specific part of the conversation. So an example, before it would only, in basic mode, it's only triggered when the call was completed. But here we can actually now trigger this on a specific part of the prompt. So the same thing. Maybe if the time frame for selling is immediately or as soon as possible, we trigger this workflow. So we would write the same thing. We would choose whatever workflow, and maybe that workflow will text the person the call is going to be transferred to and say, hey, we are about to transfer this call to you. Here's the lead's name. Here's the lead's information. Here's the lead's address. You can map all that in the text so that the person getting that lead will be like, cool, like John Smith, 123 ABC Street, asking price, boom, boom, boom. And then they're now aware that this call is going to be transferred and what it's about, versus just kind of like a blind call and you're like figuring out, wait, so what's your name and who are you and what are we doing? So that can really help with efficiency here. And then, you can tell the person what you want. You could tell the AI agent what to say to the person. So cool, we've just sent a confirmation text to our lead manager or offer concierge or lead real estate agent, whatever your business is, and then they would hear that and then expect to be transferred, right, if you did both of those. So the other thing you can do, right, is update a contact field. So this is where it gets even more powerful. So if you collect 10 pieces of information here and only on the last question do you want to trigger the call, right, depending on the answer, then you can actually use all the data from the call that was already gathered. So an example is like, if this is question 1, because it's easier to just show you in, like this than explain specific examples. So if there's question 1 and question 2, right, and let's just say on this one, on question 3, this is what triggers the workflow. You wouldn't write this on the prompt, but I'm just writing it there so you can see. So let's say the AI agent takes a call, it asks question 1, it asks question 2, and now we're at question 3. And depending on what the answer to that question is, somebody is going to either, get call transferred, the workflow will trigger or whatever if they answer it the way that, we would indicate to the system it should do those actions. Then we can actually map those previous fields from question 1. So we would do question 1, data or whatever, and then we would choose the field in the actual system. So let's just say question 1 we'll just see if one's really relevant. Do they want to sell or rent? That's just a field I have here. So then the answer to the question, do they want to sell or rent, or which wouldn't even make sense, most likely. But you can see what I'm saying, where we get question 1 answered, we tell the system to update this particular field in our system, and we can give an example. So we could say sell or rent, right? And if you want to add another one with ChatGPT, you could, write something else that maybe people answer, but it's really one of the answers. That way it can, tell you how you want this field to be updated. And so once you have this contact field saved, right, boom, you save it. Then by the time it gets here, if it triggers that workflow, question 1's data and question 2's data, if you put that one there as well, will now be texted, right, to the person who's going to call the lead. And so they can actually get the data live from the call, right? Like, okay, we got their submission, so we have that data, but now they're talking to the AI agent on the phone. The AI agent is asking these pieces of information, it's collecting it, and now because we're transferring them at the end of the questions, if they answer it a certain way, then that person's now getting all of that information fresh, which, if you're doing that between 2 humans, I mean, you probably know how long that takes, where you're like, oh, I talked to this guy and he said this and he said that, and and you're losing all that information, transferring it between 2 people, whereas this would be instantaneous. So that's a pretty good use case for that. And then lastly here, which kind of isn't super necessary if you know how to use workflows, but basically you can send texts to the lead as well, based on a specific action. So maybe you know, after the call is completed or something, it just provides a summary of, you know, the like, hey, thanks for the call with ABC Cash Offers. We will reach out to you shortly or whatever. And you would want to describe specifically when that should take place and if they meet that criteria, right? So maybe they are disqualified from the service you offer for a certain reason, and so maybe you wouldn't text people that are disqualified, right? So you would fill that into when it takes place based on the prompt. So everything derives from the prompt, okay? So these I already covered, and so that's pretty much the completion of the main part of the system. Now, the only thing that's left is the availability. So let me just turn this off. That way I can move on. So the availability works in two ways. We have either the availability where the agent, the AI agent, meaning the bot, will pick up the phone, right, as a backup to the phone number. So let's say this was my business and I have my phone number as the primary number to call. So if somebody calls, you know, the GoHighLevel number, and then that goes to me and I'm not available, then if this is turned on, then the bot that we've just created will now, you know, answer. So we'll essentially never miss the call. It's like a live voicemail, but it's AI, right? And obviously, as you saw, we can now turn that missed call from me into a lead, into you know, some sort of automation, into all these different things, right? And so that's how this toggle would work. So if we turn this off, this means that it will, the call, when somebody calls that number, it will never go to me. It will only actually go to this AI agent, all right? And then, and this works for both your business, or like I said, if you set this up for other businesses, you know, there's really no reason why they shouldn't have something like this, because you can do it two ways. You can say, hey, don't worry, if you still want to take the calls and you're that good at answering the phone, then they'll still go to you. But if you miss, let's just say 10% of calls, which is, you know, I mean, I feel like the number's probably higher than that, depending on the business, then you'll still ensure that you're going to, you know, pick up those extra 10 calls or however many that is for that business, because we've turned this on, right? So that's a cool way to use this. And then lastly, you have working hours. So you could use this the same way. Hey, I get it. You know, you're super available and you always answer the calls, but maybe on Sundays you're not so much. So we can run this on Sunday from, you know, midnight to midnight, right? And you can also do kind of what I call like an after hours bot. So maybe every business you're working with has somebody available during working hours, but maybe at 5 p.m., right, you could do basically close to midnight, can't go all the way, but you would say from 5 p.m. to 11:55 p.m. this bot's on, and you could also do from 12 a.m., right, which is like, I would probably switch these now that I'm doing it, but you'll get the idea. We would do this. So this one right here should be above here. But this probably would still work. I just visually would want that one up there. So what would happen in this case would be if the store opens at 9, well, if anyone calls before that, this AI system will work, right? Dependent on how you have this toggled. And then after the store closes, somebody will always answer as well. So it's a super great offer. I don't see, like I said, why, I mean, number one, why businesses wouldn't have this, but also how this is not going to just dominate the market, whether it's through GoHighLevel or other systems. I mean, I can just think of multiple like small businesses that I go to, just, you know, that are, you know, around here where I live, that like this would just be a game changer, and it's not really complicated. You just set up a prompt, turn it on, and you know, now they're not missing any call, right? And they're getting people answers, or whatever the bot's supposed to do, it's working. So I really think that the majority of businesses will have this. Restaurants, you know, auto body shops. I could think of multiple, you know, hair salons, like trying to book appointments with somebody that's cutting your hair, or barbershop or whatever, plumbers, electricians, roofers, real estate agents, real estate investors. I mean, really any business that makes money from more appointments. This is an offer that, I mean, people need, because the reality is people don't, I mean, I don't even know if people love calls. People just love the result that enough calls gets, which is more sales. But I mean, I don't know if people are like, I'm so happy that I'm taking all these calls, right? So if you can solve that problem, I think it's very useful, very valuable. So that's the summary here of this. As you guys can tell, I like to be pretty thorough. So that hopefully should, suffice for quite a bit of time. I'm sure they're going to add new things and there's going to be more to cover, but that's pretty much it. So you would just save that, and that would complete, part one of this tutorial, which is the AI voice agent. And so all that you would need prior to that, if you haven't done that, is you would need to buy a phone number, and then you would just select your phone number there to make sure that this thing is turned on. And then you can call it and basically test it out for yourself. But it's pretty good, and it's only going to get better. And it's very simple to set this up for a business and offer it to them, and really not have to do much work, right? You do set it up once, and if you learn how to really understand the problem of the business and then design workflows and stuff around it, I mean, you could legitimately help businesses pick up a pretty decent amount of leads. So that's the voice AI agent. All right. Let me know if you guys liked that and just have any questions or anything as well. So that's the voice AI. So that's part one, which is basically getting the AI agent to answer phone calls through what I just showed you. Now, the second feature, right, is the conversation AI. Now, if you guys really think about this and what these two features can do, if you do it correctly, I mean, part of success in business is doing these basic fundamental things correctly, right? Responding to people fast and answering people's questions and getting them to the next stage in your pipeline for the business, right? And so if you can just kind of zoom out here and think that there's an opportunity to almost fully automate this for yourself or for, another person's business, you can really see the value that is being added here by these features. Because when I started 8 years ago, the best bot that I made, was programmed with like pre-written text, right? So I would have to tell it, if they say this, then I say this, right? If they say that, then I say that, right? Now here, what you'll see, which we click on create your first conversation AI agent, is we are leveraging the intelligence of, basically I would call it AGI, right? Artificial General Intelligence, or just AI, or ChatGPT is, I believe, what is being used here. But essentially, we now have access to programming, right? A set of kind of a general direction, which is kind of how I like to put it for the prompt for both the conversational bot, which is texting, and you'll see all the channels, but I'll just keep it simple now for anything that's text communication. The prompting is very similar between a voice AI agent and a texting AI agent. And so instead of having to think through every specific thing that you need to say, right? And if the customer says this, then I need to say that. You now can basically have AI write these prompts for you, and then AI is communicating with your customers or your leads and then turning them into leads or appointments or whatever, right? And you don't have to actually like think through everything that needs to be said, because in some cases this thing will respond better than you. It's going to have a great attitude. It's not going to complain. It's not going to delay. It's not going to wait. It's not going to ask for a raise. It's just going to do what it's supposed to do. And so I just want to highlight how important these two features are, because one, they can really help you with your business, and two, you can really help other businesses by integrating these features, right? And you don't need to be, I mean, yeah, what I showed you before is based on my knowledge of doing this for a long time. But I mean, if you just know how to set this stuff up, the majority of these businesses are not going to need anything more advanced than that, right? And so what we have here is we now have our conversational AI bot. So the first one was through voice. This one is now anything via text, right? Texting, Facebook, Instagram, you'll see how all this works. And so the first thing that we have is we have our create a new bot section, which is general Q&A, all right? So this would basically be like, you can see here, simplify customer interactions by answering common questions instantly. So this would be like, where are you located, or what's the address, or what hours are you open, or what services do you provide, or what's your pricing, right? That's kind of what this is, right? The appointment booking is where if you customize it, right, it would like qualify them if you want to do it that way, or it would just book them into an appointment, right? Which you'll see kind of how that works. And then we have the start from scratch. Now, since I'm a little bit more advanced, I always like to custom build things, but they're essentially all the same things, right? These buttons just kind of take you into a different user experience, which will make it easier for you to kind of build this out, right? So I can just kind of show you inside each one, and then I'll go through the full process of just building one from scratch so you can see. So if I click General Q&A, then we have the same thing. So naming the bot, then we have the status of the bot. So do we want this turned on or off? If it's off, nothing's going to work, right? The other thing we have is what's called a suggestive setting. So if, let's say, somebody asks us what time or what are our store hours, if we have this turned on to suggestive, it will scan your prompt, which I'll show you. And if the prompt says we are open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, then suggestive would pop up in the message with the customer. It'll pop up a little button that kind of gives you a few different responses you can just click. And then when you click those, you can send them. So it's almost like the customer asks a question, the AI goes through the prompt, helps you come up with an answer, and then boom, it puts it right there as a suggestion, and then the human can look through it, click on the one they like, and maybe edit it or add their own touch and then send it, right? So this one's cool as well, but it's not full-on autopilot. So autopilot is they ask a question, the bot instantaneously responds, right? Which is what most people want. So now we have the communication channels or providers. So you can see we can turn this on for all of these channels. So when people DM the business on Instagram, when people DM the business on Facebook, a Facebook business page, all right? There's also a feature in GoHighLevel called a chat widget. And so I can explain it, but it's actually on their website. So hold on. So here I am on GoHighLevel's website. And so you can see here, this is the live chat widget, excuse me. And so what this does is there's a few different settings you can configure within this feature. And one feature is where, like, if I were interested in this software, and if you are interested, you can use my link and actually get a 30-day extended trial instead of 14 days, and you get all of my exclusive bonuses as well. And so you can see my cat here wanting to snuggle up next to me. But basically, we have this chat widget feature, and there's a few ways that we can configure this. So the first way is called SMS chat. And so what that will do is if I fill out my name and my phone number and say, hey, what is your pricing? Then this window will close and say, hey, we'll send you a text back to answer your question, right? And that'll just show right here on this window. Now, and so what this means is that when people fill out this form, the conversation is continued via text message, okay? And so the reason for that, because this feature was released prior to all of this stuff being available, is because the majority of businesses are not going to respond in time for the user to get a response right there on the live chat. So if I say, hey, what's your pricing? And I don't get a response for like probably even 40, 50 seconds, I mean, I'm on to the next thing, right? And so whereas if we do it with the SMS chat, I'm gonna say, hey, what's your pricing? They're gonna text me and say, hey, we got your question and we're waiting for a response, right? Now with the AI autopilot reply, the AI will do that, right? But so what this will do is essentially respond to the inquiry from the lead over text message. So if I say, hey, what's your pricing? And our AI autopilot system is turned on, and the prompt tells us what the pricing is, or tells the AI what the pricing is, it'll just text that over to the lead instantly, all right? Now, here's the live chat feature, which is like the user inquires here on the actual widget and instantaneously would get a response from the AI right here on the site. So that is a setting that you would set up over here, just so if you're a little bit newer to GoHighLevel, it's under your sites and then chat widget, and you can like do all this stuff over here, all right? That's its own whole training. But that's how you can configure that particular setting, all right? So I'm just gonna go through this one again just so you can see. So what I would suggest, right, is you know your business the best, and you know who you're setting this up, and their business, hopefully. And so there's a few different things to be aware of here, right? I would say in most cases, unless you've got a really, really thriving business, the majority of conversations are going to only happen on one or two platforms, right? Channels. So turning it on, while may look cool, can potentially just not even yield anything, or maybe if they're on a specific, you know, channel, you want to have a specific experience for that channel, right? So for example, if somebody's on my website, right, that's probably a different experience than maybe somebody texting my number from a sign, right, and then going through a bot, right? So you just want to be mindful of how you design that. Thankfully, you can design as many of these bots as you want and have them for specific channels, and you can even you can actually route these leads or inquiries based on specific automations or things like that. And just to show you what I mean about that, so let's just say, for example, that if somebody fills out I'll just use a Facebook lead form as an example. So if somebody fills out our lead form here, and we have this as an automation, if we have two different bots, let's just say for an example, and let's just say with our Facebook lead forms, we're trying one offer, and then with a survey, we're trying like another offer, just as an example. So what I can do is I can actually route this particular lead to a specific bot. So, you can see here I have these different bots. And so I would then change, like, okay, the lead form bot, I want to this sales bot, for example. And then I would leave that as active, right? And you could also do the same if you have a default bot that this goes to. You can basically click on maybe the Facebook lead form. You don't want to go to the support, so you just make this inactive, turn this off, and then now you update it to the correct one, which is now the sales bot, right? So you can do all these cool things over here. Like I said, I like to just make sure that if I'm saying something, you have an idea of kind of what I mean in the actual workflows, all right? So if we go over here to where we were, right, that's how you can kind of, make sure each of the channels is working the way that you want it to, because like I said, sometimes Instagram or Facebook is going to be a little bit different than where you're getting the real leads, and so you don't want to like throw that experience off for the customer, right? So just know which channels you want there and what you're going to do. Then we have the name. So this is pretty self-explanatory. And then we have our wait time before responding. So how long does the bot wait? If we wait 1 second, that's almost an instantaneous response. If you want to go, 60 seconds, maybe it makes it look more real. I'm in the world of automation and AI, so we want our responses to be as fast as possible. I don't even think anyone cares. And we get tons of awesome results with this. We actually just had somebody from our, one of our clients generate a motivated seller lead and close a $60,000 deal through our system, and using what I'm showing you here and the ads and other stuff. But the lead filled out the form, and guess what? Went through this exact bot that I'm showing you right now, and then they booked an appointment. So I'm not just telling you some, cool idea, maybe you should try this. Like, this made a material difference for our actual client and booked it into an appointment, which created over $60,000 of profit for the client, okay? So I recommend doing this as fast as possible. Lastly here, you can do the maximum messages a bot can send, which I believe is 25. And so I just max it out at 25, okay? Then, and just to explain this, if let's say you're a little hesitant of how it's going to respond or how it works, first test it and try it yourself. But you could just do like 3 messages. So that means that like if you would want to design your prompt to align with that though, because if let's say you have 5 qualifying questions and you do 3 messages here because you just want to jump in when the lead is ready, then they're going to be kind of hanging on the cliff waiting for those other 2 questions. You could tell the flow wouldn't have been completed. So I would make sure if you do like 3 messages or something that those first 3 are really like open-ended to where somebody could jump in, all right? But this is a good way to test it out with real inquiries is, limit this. That way you can just see, hey, if you're demoing this for a business, you could say, look, like the AI bot responded middle of the night and, answered these questions. And then because we didn't max it out, that business or that lead was left kind of unattended. So let's turn this up, right? So it's a good way to test it for your business, see how it works. And it's also a good way to demo it with a business owner that's maybe hesitant that it'll work or something, right? Lastly, for this one, which I already said lastly, but this one's cool because what this turned on is if, let's say, the bot is messaging a lead and then the owner or the person that's working the lead jumps in and sends that lead a message. Well, if you turn this on, it will actually turn this bot to sleep. Okay, so then what will happen is that now the user, right, the person can actually interact with the lead and not worry about the automation firing and all that stuff, right? So that's what you can do with this, all right? Now we're kind of here in the next section, which is very similar to the other setting up the voice AI system. And they have a few cool features. Now keep in mind, this is based off of the customer question and answer template that they have. And so here we can put in a website, which will, the GoHighLevel will crawl that website and try and get the data. And then it will turn that into, questions that the bot can answer. So for example, if I go over here to GoHighLevel and I paste that in, it's going to now crawl this site. We'll see if it actually works. It may take a few minutes. And then from there, once it gets all that information, it should be able to now tell me questions about or answers to questions about the site. So if I ask, for example, let's see if it shows pricing should be down here. Some of these I don't know if they'll pull because these are like images, not text, but it should pull pricing. So if I say, what's the pricing? It should pull these two prices right here, right? So it's going to take a second, but that's what you can do. And you can do that with your business if you have a website, or you can do that with, the business that you're helping and see how that works. Now, I still would recommend probably cleaning it up with either a document, which just would say question, answer, and that, the question and then the answer to all the things that business wants. That'll probably get you the best results. You, like I said, can test how well this crawls the site. But I would recommend going that route, and you can also just do it here as well. So if I say, what is your pricing? And I can say, we offer 2 plans. One plan, or our first plan starts at $97. Our second plan starts at $297. Or I should just say is, right? And then once we save that, right, that should be in there. And I'm going to say, I'll refresh this, and it should be, I don't see it here, but let's see if it works. What is your pricing? And it should produce that output that I said there. If it didn't load, I think it's maybe because it's fetching this site, and I may want to cancel that. Yeah, so let me cancel that and just show you guys how that works. So yeah, that's why, I mean, in most cases you can crawl the site, and you just may have to wait. I don't want to make you guys wait on the video, but if I say, what is pricing, we should get that response now here, since I can see that data right there. So let's see if that goes through. If it doesn't, I think it has something to do with just this, me loading it up with this website there. Maybe their security went off, like somebody's trying to crawl the site. But this will work, and so I suggest doing the, doing the actual Q&A and creating a custom prompt. Obviously, if you're just getting into this stuff, you can do what's easiest for you. But, that's how I'd recommend doing it. So let me just show you guys that we can get that thing to work, since I probably overloaded it with crawling that site. So what is your pricing? Let's see if that'll work. If not, I definitely jammed this thing up, which I think I did. So I'll move on here and kind of show you the actual part where you put in the prompt. And so if you have to keep in mind, right, what the actual goal is of the bot. Now, when I showed you how to set this up or choose your kind of template, they all essentially lead to the same, the same tool. It's just kind of a different presentation of it. So starting from scratch, you can see is the same as like the other one. It just doesn't, that's not how it looks when you actually click on it, right? You can see bot training. It's all still the same thing. It just kind of makes it so that when you're there, you're like, cool, I just click one. but it's still the same exact thing, okay? So when you're setting up your bot, you need to identify the use case, right? So I'm going to skip through this so you guys can see what I'm saying. So if the goal of the bot is to book the appointments, right, you may want to load a few frequently asked questions just to, make sure that those are there if people do ask those questions. Now, if you are going to do it right, and really like qualify the lead and do the stuff that we do, and I can show you this example right here. This is actually a case study that I'm working on, like creating a video for, showing how, like I said, we helped our real estate investor client make 60 grand profit from our system, which is, part of what I am showing you is the AI conversation system. And so you can see that they filled out a form, right? And then here's the response from the lead. Here's the bot, and then here's the response from the lead, and then here's the bot, here's the response from the lead. So all this stuff was happened fully, autonomously, and then it even books the appointment, and this then turned into an appointment and turned into a closed deal. So that's really how we use it is for that. There are some questions here and there people ask, but we really want to get them, in the door, qualified, and on a call, and then that's where the person can do it. And so right here, this is where you would put in your prompt, all right, for your actual bot. And like I said, I already have other videos that show you guys how to do this stuff, but to keep it pretty simple and explain it, the personality here, I just put you are like a friendly, you're a friendly appointment booking concierge or something like that. Same logic here applies. You can use the content from the lead as well. And then the intention is to, qualify the leads and get them to book an appointment if they're qualified. That's the intention. So the additional information is where, let me scroll down here, is where we write in our prompt, which is similar to how you'd write the voice AI prompt. So here I would just say, like, you can see pretty much our prompt right here. So they fill out the form, and then the first question I didn't show because it has the address and I didn't want to edit that. But basically you can see that the first question is something like, hey John, we just received your request for a cash offer at, and then insert the address. Is there anything you've done to your property recently? So then he responds. And so then the way that I have this prompt, just so you can kind of see it, is you have like your greeting, which is like your first message, which is the, hey, just received your submission. Now, when you're doing this specifically for like a paid ads acquisition system, you want to make sure that your greeting is super specific to what they just did. And you don't want to just like, hey, how can I help you, right? So I would really think about what the greeting should be for each of your channels or whatever channel you're making this bot for. So if you're making this for people that see a sign outside of your business and text you, right, specifically for that, I would say, hey, thanks for texting us off of our sign or whatever it is. You qualify for this offer. We just need a few, questions answered or whatever it is, right? So we make this really specific. It's not like, hey, how can I help you, whatever. It's like, you just filled out our ad. This is what you requested. This is the address. Like, boom, let's get right into it. And you want to start with a question. Ideally, all these questions are very engaging, but you want to start with a question that's kind of open-ended. Like, what have you done to the property, right? That's not, it's useful to know. It's not essential, right? The real thing we want to know is their timeline and their price. That's kind of what it comes down to, and their motivation. But it's more open-ended, right? So instead of just going straight into like trying to qualify them, we just want to get them responding. Once they're responding, now we can kind of open the door and start asking these other questions. So you have your greeting, and then you just have your qualifying questions here. So you just, basically what we have here is like why you are selling, and you do have to write these out a little bit, more nicely than that, but the AI will correct these and make it conversational, which is really cool. And then timeline, and what else do we have? Asking price, and so you get the idea. So that's the frame. You have your greeting, which is the first message you're going to send to them. You have your qualifying questions, and then you have the like ask for the appointment, and then you have the disqualifying questions if you have enough volume. So an example for us is if their property is listed with an agent. So in our niche, if people already have their home up for sale, right, and they have a contract with somebody that has agreed to sell it, in most cases, this isn't really what we're looking to do, right? Our clients aren't looking for this. So we have enough leads where we actually do disqualify these leads so that it's not, we're not booking appointments with people that already have their property up on the market. And so be careful with these. If you don't have enough volume, you don't want to not do any calls, right? But we have enough lead flow to where this is relevant to what we're doing. So you can add a few of these, but you got to make sure that those questions are here. And you want to make sure that you don't do too many, because sometimes people aren't honest, like budget. Sometimes people say they don't have as much and they do, but they just, right? So be careful with that. But that's really the frame. It's like the greeting. So what I do above here is like context. So like, you are Jackie, you work for this company, this is what you're doing, like this is what's going on, they're filling out this form, this is who you're talking to. Then the greeting, like what do you say when you get triggered, right? When we start you as an AI bot, what do you say, right? And then the context helps them understand why they're saying it, right? And then what questions do we want you to ask? Once we ask those, we ask for the appointment. And then based on those questions, if they answer it a certain way, we don't want them to book the appointment, right? And then just kind of a completion, which usually if you do the auto appointment booking thing here, it'll just confirm the appointment. But you could just say, something like that, like, cool, we're going to book you in for those times. Actually, never mind. You don't need that if you do it with this. Yeah, you don't need that. So the actions are similar to, what we have on the actual the voice AI agent. But what's cool here, and I'm sure GoHighLevel is going to add this into the voice AI, there is a workaround for it that you can do. It's not perfect, but it does work. Whereas this one can actually book an appointment on a GoHighLevel calendar. So GoHighLevel has their own calendar system, and just kind of like Calendly or other softwares. So people can book in, choose a date, choose a time, all that stuff. And then what you can do here is you can actually link the calendar and the availability to this bot. So an example is like our client put in his availability, and now that's how it's pulling these times, right? And that's how it's booking it in, and then it's basically turning it into an appointment. And so you basically can choose a calendar. Like I said, on the voice AI, you can't do that yet, but you can do it here. There's some other settings here where it won't book the appointment, like conversationally. This is conversationally booking it, like giving the slots, getting the time, and then booking the actual appointment. This can send a link, which there's really no point of sending a link. I wouldn't really even know a use case where you would want to send a link, unless you're maybe trying to use this for an external calendar system like a Calendly, and then you prompt it to send the link and you attach it there. Other than that, you would probably, it's better for the customer and it's cleaner. It's just all in text. It's more human-like. Then you have some other things too. So pausing the bot after they book, right? You can turn that on, and you can also trigger a workflow after booking, right? Just like I mentioned on the other one. Now, if you have a trigger in your automation that triggers on a booked appointment, that will already trigger, so you wouldn't need to do this twice, right? So what I mean, and the reason we don't need a completion message, is that if somebody books the appointment and we have a workflow that triggers when someone books the appointment, then we can basically send them a text and an email reminder, whatever you have in place, right? So you don't need this if you have your booking reminder set up correctly. And then lastly, this is kind of cool, you can now transfer this person from this AI employee. So let's just call this the appointment booking bot. And then you could transfer it to like the support bot. So now they've booked the appointment, and now maybe we want to have a bot with a different prompt that's like, this is John. He booked an appointment. Like, here's his appointment day. Here's his appointment time. If he has questions, like, answer those questions. So you kind of move the AI agent out of being okay, the goal is to book the appointment, to the goal is just to answer their questions, right? And potentially reschedule if they need to, or book a new appointment. So it's really cool. I could do a whole training on building those two systems together, but that's what you can do there. All right. So select your calendar if you want to do actual appointments there. This one's pretty self-explanatory from what I covered before. if you want to trigger the the workflow based on specific things, like if they say, like I said, their timeline for selling is immediately, you could trigger a workflow. Hey, go check on this lead. He says that he needs to sell immediately, right? That's what you can do there. And then same thing, we can do the update contact info. So why are they selling? Well, we can put in our system, I don't know if I have it here. Yeah, reason for selling. So when we ask that question, then we update that field, and then we would say the contact's reason for selling their property. And then I could say, like in this example, this guy said out of work, right? And so I can say provide an example, and I could say what I would do here is like a general description, because it is AI on the back end. So I would just say the contact provides any sort of reason for why they need to sell. That should catch almost all the responses, but you can do some examples like downsizing in this example, or inherited the property, or whatever, right? And then you would just save that action, and so that'll pull those pieces of data anytime somebody answers the question, and you have that mapped here. I believe the limit here is 3, so you can't do more than that, I believe. So I'm not going to set them all up to figure it out, but I believe it is 3. All right. And then lastly, we just have, now they've added this. So stop the bot. So you can see this is kind of a pre-written thing, goodbye detection when the contact says goodbye, or similar phrases. So you may want to add in some other, this should be good, but it should work on, after the appointment is booked. It depends how you have your system set up, but this is a new thing that they've added, which can help you so that you're not, still using the bot when the conversation's done. All right. And you can also make it so that it will add tags once this phrase is triggered. So you can see here, if we enable this and the contact says bye, which in my case, I don't really ever see that. They usually just say thanks to the appointment, or they just won't respond. So in most cases, when the appointment is booked, I would probably just turn off the bot there and move it to the support bot if you want. But if you want to try this out, this is just going to pull these types of responses from the contact, and then you can produce like the output from the bot. So if they say bye, you can just say, yeah, this is okay, but this is fine. You would probably just want to leave this how it is, but I personally just wouldn't use this, because once the appointment's booked, then you can say exactly like a really accurate completion message, right? If they say thanks, and we say thanks for your time, or they say bye, you get what I'm saying. This will work, but you're pre-programming one fixed message to any one of these responses, and I just prefer to do it when the appointment ends, but you can do that as well. So you can add some other sequences, but that's pretty much it. I'd recommend, if you're doing an appointment booking, you would do that on the appointment. That'll make it way stronger. And then you save that thing, and we basically now have those two systems set up. So yeah, you can see I totally jammed this thing with, to where it's not even working, but it does work. There we go. It thinks it's a property. That is the other thing to mention, is that the training material is applicable to all bots, which I hope will be changed, because you can see here, I obviously have my motivated seller booking bot, which is what we use. And so it actually is pulling that data. So you just want to make sure whatever's in your sub account is relevant, because if it's not, you can totally see it's responding to this, which obviously this is a demo account, but just want to make sure that you're not doing tests in here and stuff, because that'll affect your bot. So anyway, with that being said, that is a pretty thorough summary of how to use the voice AI features and how to use the conversation AI features. Hopefully it found you well. If you would like to use my GoHighLevel link, it will be linked below, and that will get you a 30-day free trial, as well as access to my community, where I do a weekly Q&A call with all the members, and all of my bonuses, like I have templates in there, bot templates. I have what are called snapshots if you're new to HighLevel, which is essentially like these businesses in a box. So if you have a business with a website and a funnel, you can basically turn that into what's called a snapshot. and I have those in there. So I've been doing this for the past 6 years, and I basically have all the resources relevant to succeeding with the software and selling it to other businesses. So that's what you get there as well. And additionally, there is a link to a free group which has about 4,400 members in there, which you can join for free. So you can hang out in there, watch some videos and stuff on, more things about high level, and you can use my link later as well. So hopefully this found you well, and talk to you then. Bye-bye.